Hi, ladies. I'm just going to jump in and get started with our group today. We're talking about limiting beliefs. And first of all, I want to just say how excited I am of how this group is going. I love all your interaction with each other, and I love that you encourage one another. I love that you're jumping in on the Beat Today posts and telling us with a heart if um, were able to stay sugar and grain free for the whole day, which many of you were. I'm so excited about that. So all you have to do is kind of click on the heart for that picture every day. And then if you maybe had different goals, if maybe you aren't going completely sugar or grain free according to your lifestyle and your struggle, whatever it may be, but you are setting yourself goals and keeping to them. And if you kept to it that day, then I want you to click on the little thumbs up and put that on there. And if maybe you missed the mark and you didn't do what you had hoped to do, you weren't able to stay sugar and grain free that day, then click on the little care button and make so that you can tell yourself, I care, it matters, I'm okay, I love myself, I'm forgiving myself, and I'm moving on. And so I love that you're doing that on the Beat Today post. That is really cool. And I think it's encouraging to all of us. And I think that we can use that as an opportunity to encourage one another also and put in there our struggles and the things that we're trying to overcome. So anyways, without any more, I'm going to share a couple things at the end about what else is coming up. I'm going to jump in and start talking about limiting beliefs, and I'm going to share some stuff. And then at the end of that, if there's anyone who has questions or input, then we'll kind of go over that. So limiting beliefs. What are limiting beliefs? Sometimes these are called self-limiting beliefs, and they are assumptions and learned beliefs that restrict us and keep us from growth and change. Okay, they can be formed at any point in our life, but usually they begin early on when our perspective as a child is very limited and being formed. So sometimes these self-limiting beliefs are even handed down from generation to generation. This is what mom taught us. This is what grandma always said. This is the way it is. So we believe that. Limiting beliefs stop us a lot of times from becoming the person that God has created us to be. And they can be difficult to overcome without the right tools. So we're going to talk about that today. So exactly how are these patterns formed? Well, first, they start with a negative experience, all right? And then our mind starts drawing conclusions about how to prevent this from occurring again, because our brain is always trying to help us, to save us, to protect us. So when we feel pain, when something negative happens, our brain's trying to comfort us and keep us from feeling more hurt. So it's going to kind of create a belief around that. And a lot of times it becomes a fearful limiting belief, okay? And that results, like I just said, in the birth of that self-limiting belief as our brain tries to protect us from some kind of discomfort or pain. An example of this would be, I can't say no to people. That's a limiting belief. I can't say no to people. Well, let's look at where that may have come from. It could be stemming from thoughts like, well, one time I said no and then they got mad at me. And important things only get done if people aren't mad at me and I can move on and I can do my thing. But if they're mad at me, then the right things won't happen in life. Okay, so it creates this belief in us that I can't say no because if they're mad, things can't move forward. Okay, and that's not true. You might have the thought, if I say no, that person will be upset with me and they may not like me, they may reject me. I'm just gonna okay, they may reject me and then I won't feel included anymore. That's part of that limiting belief of I can't say no to everyone. So if our brain says you can't say no, you will be rejected, you'll be left alone, our brain doesn't like that idea of us being alone, because our brain knows ancestrally, for survival, we need a tribe. So it's a very deep rooted thing that is a self-protection that we start building. The primitive, the oldest part of our brain is programmed for connection. And when there's not connection and our brain perceives that maybe saying no is going to cause a disconnection, it sees that as dangerous for us. And so it will do what it needs to do to avoid that danger. And that would mean not saying no to people. That's what that looks like. I hope that makes sense the way I said that. But you see how that works, how we set up these things? A lot of times, limiting beliefs are just rooted in our mind's effort to protect us. Now, let's bring that into our conversation about trying to make lasting changes for our health. Some examples of limiting beliefs that keep us stuck with our health are: I'm not strong enough to stand against temptation. I will never be able to give up sugar. Side note, I don't want you to think that you will never ever have sugar again. You don't have to put that belief in your head like, I'm never eating sugar again. You don't have to do that. I want you to create instead a new mindset that will never be controlled by sugar or food cravings again. Okay, so it's not like I'll never have that again. No, I just will never be controlled by that again. That's a whole different mind shift, and that really helps us. That mindset recognizes that the addiction cycle is, it recognizes it when it begins, when that addiction cycle begins, and then it shuts it down and it activates your goals, your values, and your choices. Okay, so it's a mind shift, and that's everything we're going to be talking about today with limiting beliefs is about shifting our mindset. Okay. Other examples of things that keep us stuck are: I was meant to be this size. My family's built like this. This is just the size we're meant to be. Now, granted, yes, you probably have a disposition to your body type. That doesn't mean it has to be filled with inflammation and extra weight and all those things. That is not hereditary. Okay. It is environmental. It is grandma did it this way, mom did it this way, I did it this way. So we all end up with this look, but it doesn't mean it is how you were meant to be. Okay. Another limiting belief: this just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work. I tried it before, it doesn't work. Or I don't like to cook. I don't like to prepare foods. I don't like to prep. I just don't like food prep. I'm not very good at it. That's a limiting belief that you've built up, that you've created in your mind. And what if we start tearing those beliefs down? You'll see change is what will happen. It takes too much time. It's just too hard. Or I hate exercise. I just can't stand it. Well, and if we just stop there and get stuck there, we're really stuck. But if we start thinking, what if exercise is more than just going to the gym? What if it's just movement? What if it's dancing? What if it's getting out and going for a walk with my dog? It's so different. We've got to shift our minds. Or we think it's just a battle not worth fighting. It's just too hard. This is just the way my life is. That's a limiting belief. Or I will never get past the hurt of my past and able to overcome addiction because I eat my feelings and that's just what I do. That's a limiting belief. It doesn't have to be that way for the future. You don't have to live that way. These beliefs will keep you and me stuck, sick, and miserable. So there's this old allegory, this whole old story about a baby elephant that is tied to a fence post. As the baby elephant tugs and pulls, it fails to break the fence or break the rope. Eventually, it gives up and makes peace with its fate. The baby elephant is stuck. But eventually, the elephant grows up and becomes big, an adult elephant with gargantuan legs and a huge tusk and trunk and the whole thing, and it could easily walk away from the fence if it wanted to. But it believes now that the fence is something immovable, and that adult elephant remains tied to it, falsely believing it can never get away. We do that. That is very similar to what we do. But we can change our mindset and choose new beliefs and learn. If someone would teach that elephant, it would learn. So we are now in the moment of learning, the season of learning and growing and changing. But first, let's get curious about why we have some of the beliefs, these limiting beliefs that we have, and what we gain from having these beliefs, because these limiting beliefs only stick if they serve us in some way. So, what is that? There's always a benefit for our fearful, lazy, tired, scared, hiding self. There's always a benefit somehow. What is that benefit? Such as if I say I could never quit sugar. Well, the benefit is I get to keep eating sugar and I get to keep comforting myself with sugar instead of learning how to function and grow and get dopamine hits from different things in my life, from relationships, from the sunlight, from so many things. And we're going to talk about that later. Or maybe we want to eat like this because we have a sense of community with the people that we're eating with. And so if we quit eating this way, we feel like we might lose friendships. This is a very real thing. This is very, very real. This happens. People, I talk to women all the time. They're like, well, I'm going to go out with my friends. How am I going to stay in community? How am I going to go out with friends if I can't eat this way or drink this way? Well, I think it's time that we really start looking at, is that really what's keeping our friendships together? Because if it is, that could be a problem in and of itself, right? I think we go deeper. I think it's time to go deeper with ourselves. It's time to go deeper with our friends and our community and look at why we're going to make these changes. Limiting beliefs often come though with built-in comfort zones. There's something about that belief that we get to hide in, okay? So another way of saying limiting beliefs is learned helplessness, which is really interesting. And I hope you're taking notes and I hope you're writing down any questions that you might have that we can talk about later as we go along or throwing them in the chat. But learned helplessness, I think this is a really interesting way to think about it. Here are some symptoms of learned helplessness. Number one, low self-esteem. All right. With learned helplessness, people feel bad about themselves and they doubt their ability to accomplish even the smallest tasks. Okay. So low self-esteem is a symptom of this. Frustration, because we feel like everything is outside of our control. So if we're dealing with learned helplessness, we have a really high frustration level and we just feel like we just can't do this. All right. We're frustrated. Can't get over it. Passivity is another symptom. Having the attitude of, you know what, this is just my life. This is my lot in life. This is the way it goes. I'm going to look at those potato chips and I'm going to have weight on my hips right away. That's just the way it is. And we kind of just have this passivity then and we sit back and let it happen because it's going to happen anyway, right? That's learned helplessness, a limiting belief. Lack of effort. So learned helplessness can lead to procrastination and decision avoidance, which is so easy to do. We just a lot of times let life happen to us because we're avoiding making decisions about something. All right. And the fifth thing is giving up is a symptom of learned helplessness and limiting beliefs. All right. Even when we do start working on something, we give up relatively quickly because we've just decided that it's just too hard and it causes trouble to try to follow through. And so even the smallest bumps in the road can feel just impassable. All right. Now let's talk about getting past this stuff. Do you know what the opposite of all of these is? Those of you who know me are going to really know this one off the top of your head. Moxie. Moxie. Moxie is about courage and commitment and grit. Moxie challenges these thought processes and it helps change our behaviors and our outcomes. A helpless mindset is no match for a Moxie mindset, but it has to come with a decision. It has to come with, excuse me, that choice to say, I will not stay in this mindset. I'm going to have a Moxie mindset, not a learned helpless mindset. Okay. Limiting beliefs are birthed. That helpless mindset is birthed in our primitive, that protect ourselves from saber-toothed tigers mindset in our mammalian brain. That's where limiting beliefs, because they're so rooted in fear, of some kind of fear, that it's birthed back in that reptilian mindset, that part of our brain that is like fight, flight, fight, freeze, or fawn. Maybe we'll get into that another time, because I love that whole teaching on that. But that trauma response, whatever it is, that's that primitive mindset, okay? But a moxie mindset is birthed in our neocortex. That's that front part of our brain, that decision-making part of our brain that dreams, that sets goals, that has decisive action, and it overrides that back part of our brain, that mammalian part of our brain that just operates out of fear and limited belief systems and keeps us stuck. The neocortex can and does override that. It is stronger than that, but we have to apply it. We have to do it. We have to make that decision. We have to make that commitment, and we have to have the grit that will come against those fears and those thoughts. And so how do we do this? First, number one, always we pray. We ask the Lord to show us the limiting beliefs that have kept us, that have kept you from becoming the woman he's called you to be. What are those limiting beliefs that have just kept you stuck? Ask the Lord. He sees, he knows. So ask him. Philippians 4:7 says, "And the peace of God, which transcends all our understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." Ask him for wisdom. Ask him to see it. Ask him to understand, get curious. And because he is the one that guards our hearts and our minds. So ask him. He will show you. All right. If you're going to change, if we're going to change our mindset, we need to reach out to God, who created this brain, to help us. This is more powerful than you think. Meditating on on all of these thoughts, meditating on this and exploring it is the work. But it's some of the most important work that we will do to get healthy and create a healthy mindset, free from the pitfalls of limiting beliefs, okay? What is that fear behind the limiting belief that is keeping us so comfortable we stay there? What is it? The second thing I want you to do is write it down. Writing things down is a very powerful tool that we have that is so easy. Write it down. Write the limiting belief. Write the fear behind it and the comfort or benefit that's attached to that fear. What is that benefit of the limiting belief that you have? Does it keep me being able to eat the foods I want to eat? Does it let me just basically be passive? What is it? Write it down. This is pivotal, because once you expose something, you can't unsee it, especially if you write it down. And it can't hide any longer. And by not hiding, you take away its power. By not letting those thoughts and those things hide, you take away their power. You stop it from being able to keep you from keeping you stuck. You stop it from keeping you stuck when you expose it, when you write it down, when you put it out there. And then I want you to write a response, a truthful response, the truth behind what that limiting belief is. Okay, so be it a prayer or a declaration. Here's an example. So the limiting belief is, I am afraid I won't be strong enough to say no to temptation. That's that limiting belief in me. I'm afraid I won't be able to say no. The fear behind it is, I will fail. I will be a failure. The consequence of that is that I will be unhappy. I will be depressed. I will never lose weight and get healthy. Okay, so that's all the belief, the fear, and the consequence. Now, the truthful response. How can you declare truth to this situation? You write it out. You say it out loud. I am a work in progress. This walk isn't perfect. It's a journey, though, that I will stick to. And I will trust God to work in and through me through the whole thing. And He will give me the strength I need. Now, what I don't want you to do in that truthful response is be like, I will overcome, I will like be real radical. Like say, I will never eat sugar again, never, ever, ever will I have ice cream again. Boom. Your brain knows that probably isn't true. You can't lie to yourself. So I'm not asking you to lie to yourself. I'm asking you to, what can you believe? And that's your declaration. That's your truth. I believe that I'm a work in progress and I'm going to get stronger every time I say no. I believe that wholeheartedly. So my brain will get behind me on that, and will uphold that. I won't cringe when I say it. I mean it. I'm going to get better. I'm going to get stronger. I am not perfect, but I know that God is faithful and He's going to walk me through this. The affirmation, the truthful response is the most important part because it will become the new belief, the new mindset that you will create and continue to strengthen every time you feel, you say it, and you declare it. Okay? So that's in a nutshell what limiting beliefs are. And I could go on for hours, but we're going to kind of wrap it there. So because you have a lot to think about. That is a lot. Go back over this again, take notes, think about what I said and how it applies to you. And I really want you to think about, what are those limiting beliefs? I want you to start talking about them, and I want you to start walking through the steps of what's that fear behind it, what comfort am I giving myself by having it, and what is the truth I can speak to it, what is the declaration I'm going to make about it. So I hope you're ready to overcome limiting beliefs. And any questions or any input? I see that Sophia gave some hands up, and finding exercise that you enjoy. I know Sophia is just wonderful. Hopefully she'll write some more in our group and talk about how she has just transformed her own life between eating right and moving her body more. So I think that's really cool. I'll just wrap up with the video with events coming up. Next Tuesday, the 10th, is at 6:30 in the evening. I'm going to do a Zoom, so it'll be easier for some people to attend, hopefully. But I know that a lot of people are just watching these later, and I love that. That is awesome. I just want to make it available live in case someone did have questions or wanted to talk. So that's next Tuesday and next Friday. If you're local, meet us in person at Passiflora in Plainwell at 9 a.m. And then don't forget to do those Beat Today posts. And I think I will stop recording, and then I can, unless you had a question or something you wanted to share, Shonda.
I just want to say thank you for having this group. It came at the right time when I went through probably one of the most challenging weeks of my journey. And I shared about that in the Facebook group, about one, we're no longer empty nesters, so I know I don't have control over my pantry. Also, the guest that came in this last week and stayed a week and brought all kinds of good stuff, delicacies, and I was able to get through it because I knew I had this group. And so I just want to say thank you, because I knew I wasn't alone on this journey where I felt like I was alone in this house. I was able to look at your post in the group and receive encouragement and receive insight and know that I can continue on this journey. So I just want to say thank you for that. Now I do have some introspective work to do. Even though I had the victory, I know that it was grit that got me through. It was determination that got me through. You asked the question to me in the Facebook group, did I miss out on the social aspect of it? And that is a big thing. I get that. You brought that up in this training right now, is that it is a social thing and we feel like we're missing out. One of the things that I find difficult that perhaps maybe we can explore a little bit is the pressure. I did not get pressure from the family and the guests that were here. I did not get pressure. They honored my boundaries. They respected that. But I know that there's other environments that we go into where people say, oh, it's just a little bit, just have a little bit won't hurt you. And you get that pressure.
Mhm.
So what do you say when we're in that? What would you suggest when we're in an environment where, oh, it's just a little piece, but a little piece would trigger? Sugar
Right.
is a trigger for me. Once I have a little taste, then it seems like I can't satisfy that taste. It just wants more and more and more.
Well,
And
I think that's a great answer right there too. Because the thing is, most people understand this, but sometimes they're not in the same place and they're not as ready to address it as us. So I always try to be careful not to be condemning in any way, because sometimes, if someone's not in that frame of mind, they're gonna feel condemned just by me not eating something. But I try to say, that looks amazing. I would love to have that right now, but I just know if I start, I won't stop. And I just really struggle with it. And, this is it's really nice when we have a month, we can say, I'm in this group and we're doing this September thing. We've got that backing us. But when we don't, that's when we need to really be like, okay, I've just decided that I'm not having any sugar or grains right now. I have to really watch it when I do. And a lot of times I'll tell people when I do, I will feel so sick. Well, people don't want us to feel sick. So they get that, so a lot of times that's helpful too. And, people will ask like, well, what are you doing? I've heard, is it just keto? Because keto is really bad. My doctor says it's horrible for me. I get that kind of stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I am just doing basically a modified Mediterranean way of eating, and just trying to choose more natural foods. And I just try to say it in a very positive way that won't make them feel bad for not joining me. Like, oh, that food is terrible and it will kill you. I'm not going to say that, because obviously that's just very condemning and very judgmental. And I certainly don't want to be that way. But for me, that food is not going to help. And I have autoimmune issues. So sometimes I use that as my reasoning too. And it depends who it is and how personal I want to get. But I'll say, yeah, if I start having that, I'll start having a hard time getting up in the morning, and, I'll start hurting again. And it feels really good not to hurt. More times than not, people want to know more about it then.
okay, so basically it's still just sticking to our grit, sticking to our moxie, as you called it, and just really sticking it out and respecting our own boundaries, even though they feel pushy.
Yeah.
And not to, and you brought up not being judgmental. So that's something that came up in my mind 2 times this last week, was judgmental thoughts. I never shared them. How do we address that? Do we address that in the limiting beliefs? Because they're not where I'm at and they don't have the understanding. I want to honor and respect where
Right.
they are and not come across judgmental. And just in full transparency, may I share some of what it was? Okay, so like I know one of these persons is a diabetic, uses insulin to control their sugars, but yet they choose to eat
Yeah.
the foods that spikes the insulin.
Yeah.
And I grieve, part of me grieves for it,
Mhm.
but them still choosing a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I really battled that. And I never, like I said, I never spoke anything out loud,
Right.
but it was one of those things. I sort of used it to keep me on track, saying I would be on track to be that way if I didn't control my sugar, because I was hypoglycemic, on track to going that route if I don't take control of my foods
Yeah.
and my choices.
And so there's two parts, I think, to that. Part of that is we have to think about, is it your fear that's so maybe insecurity with ourselves we have to deal with, like I'm secure in the fact that this is the life I've chosen and I feel really good about it and I'm secure in that. But then you brought up another point, which is, and I totally get this, is that you want to help people and you see what people are doing and why it's happening, and we watch that, and that's really hard when we have, because our heart is like, oh, I want to help you, but people have to want it, they have to be ready, just like us. I wasn't always ready, and there were times when I was like, don't even talk to me about food. I just, I just wasn't ready. And so with people like that, especially sometimes I have clients that it's excuse after excuse after excuse, and I get it. I mean, I understand it, and I try to help them see it because they're specifically asking for my help. So it's a little bit different, but when I think we meet people where they're at, I think if somebody is like, you know what, and that's why in this group I opened it up to, if you just want to quit soda pop, whatever it is, and you just eat how you eat, and you start somewhere.
That one step. Yeah.
That one step. I don't care if it's little bitty or if it's huge, but I want to encourage them to start somewhere. But if people aren't asking for our advice and aren't wanting to know, it's like we have to just let it go and just
Yes.
hope that we can help people who want it. But there are a lot of people just they don't want to hear it. I mean, and I get it. The addiction is real. And that's why I'm going to talk about addiction, because it is so real. It is so much wrapped in our life. Like, we have to row upstream to live this life of health. We really do, because everything around us is telling us to go the other way, or they're giving us these crazy ideas about buy this program and spend all this money on this food, and you're going to eat 6 little meals a day, and you're going to have these bars, and they're filled with junk. They're just filled with processed junk, and it's so hard. And of course, they fill up my Facebook page, and it just breaks my heart, because I'm like, you're just eating soybeans all day long. You're not getting anything healthy for you. Your immune system is fighting this stuff you're giving it. And sure, you're losing weight, but it's not healthy, and again, I have to remind myself, everyone's journey is different than mine. If that program helps you lose enough weight to where you start making healthier decisions, and you start feeling better, and you start moving more because you've lost that weight. Same thing with the GLP-1 inhibitors that are out there now, the Wegovy's and the Ozempics and all those things. If they help someone get to a place of choosing a healthy lifestyle, great. That's your journey. That's what you need to do, but I hope you get to a point where you're making choices that are your choices, and you get to the point where you're making, feeding your body nutrition the way it needs to thrive.
Right. Absolutely. So I think that what you've shared here today is very helpful to help me. Like, I had the success this time, but I know if I don't continue practicing, if I don't put these other things in place, it'll be so easy to go back the other way. That's why I'm going to put these guards in place and take these next steps and examine where the beliefs are. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a journey of a lifetime. A lot of times I'll have to come back to something I learned day one to remind myself, it's a journey, and it's ups and downs. And I'm going to talk more about that too as we go on in the month. But yeah, well, I'm glad that you joined me. And
thank you.
Thank you to all of you who are watching. And I hope you throw some comments down in the comment section, any questions or input, and maybe we'll all connect again later at a different one. Thanks a lot, Shonda, and everybody have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.